You know, you said something that really struck a chord about responding skillfully. And that made me think that these meditations that are here for the deeper dive and any practice that people already have or choose to develop um, on their own, what was I going to say? Well, it just has this direct and indirect ways that it could be helpful to us in healthcare because we have um, bullying and blaming in our cultures in healthcare. And I often wonder if, like, part of that is that people are so cranked up with the amount of stress that they have that they're not responding skillfully. And then that leaves a residue of relationship problems. And, you know, it's kind of a ripple effect of unskilled interactions. Whereas meditation, it sounds like, could help us directly with our own response, but it could also ripple out into the culture. We'd be modeling it, and we'd be not. Well, what am I thinking of? Like it's sort of like a a reactionary thing that goes on between people, and it just gets like this. Whereas if one person slows down, you know, maybe we. How would you? I mean,
Yeah. I think one of the things that stops people, uh, several things. Well, one is they don't even know what mindfulness is. And the other thing is that they don't know how simple it can be.
mm,
And so, and I think that's true in self-care. People are always talking about self-care and who's got time for a bath, you know? You know what I mean? It doesn't, right? I mean, I'd love to
right.
take a bath every day, but you know, who's got time? And so you think, oh, okay, I don't have time for that, so it gets dismissed. Or I
Mm,
don't have time for a long meditation thing, gets dismissed. Again, going back to this idea of finding really simple, small ways. And so if I saw someone that in a stressful situation regulate themselves,
wow.
it does model that positive behavior, which is exactly what you're saying, and shows that it's possible even under these crazy stressful situations we're in.
Right.
Um, it's possible. And that just reminds me of an article I read a long time ago, and I haven't thought about this in a long time. And I'm going to look for this article now because I want that people who defuse bombs. So I would say that's a stressful situation.
Yeah. Right.
They
Yeah.
have found that the ability to regulate themselves under those conditions helps them to work through a situation that is highly stressful
Wow.
and um, under time constraints many times.
Right. Wow.
Right? So
Yeah. Which that's,
there,
I mean, the bombs aren't going to go off, but we are constantly in healthcare. Everything we do is urgent to somebody. And they may not all be life or death consequences, but often they are.
yeah, yeah. So I think that's a good, I mean, because I think often people might feel, I'm guessing, not having been a healthcare provider, but nobody knows how stressful it is. Like,
Yeah.
I'm under a lot of stress, and how could this work under that situation? But if you think of people who are diffusing bombs, that's kind of
Yeah.
analogous, I would say.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
it's
Well,
right
definitely the
there.
stress level is like on in the red zone.
Yeah, and
Um,
the stakes are high.
yes. Yeah. High stakes, high
Yeah,
stress. I mean, for healthcare people, it's almost like from the minute you walk in the door.
yeah,
Um, and that might be something that I would argue might be different.
yeah.
And maybe just serves to support all the more reason to be meditating because of that degree of relentless high level of stress.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Wow. Um, it makes me think like you were talking about your cancer diagnosis and navigating that. And if we think about when we're talking with patients or families, what they're going through stress wise and how our ability to regulate ourselves might actually be therapeutic. Would you say that's true?
I would absolutely say, because who wants to be freaked out talking to a doctor who's freaked out or a nurse who's freaked out? Like, yeah, I don't see how that can possibly help. But again, going back to this idea of if we can see when we're under stress, if we can see somebody regulating themselves, it can remind us that it's possible, right?
We might even invite them to share a deep, slow breath together.
Right.
And would that not also, that helps people feel connected to each other.
Absolutely.
You actually said that to me the other night when we were talking about having this conversation. That I think we were talking about an activity, and maybe it was. Do you remember what we were talking about? It was improv and mindfulness, maybe. But there was something about this taking that moment helped us to feel connected, and being connected is really fundamental to our mental health.
It is. It is because we're social animals and we
Yeah.
have these mirror neurons. I don't know a lot about this, but where we're experiencing the same emotions that the people that we're in the room with.
Yeah.
Our brains are firing off
Wow.
the same
Wow.
places if we're experiencing a lot. So that talk about a ripple effect.
Yeah.
We can ripple out calm or we can ripple out stress.
Right. Wow.
And if we're always just on the gerbil wheel of the habits of
Yep.
reacting, we don't have
Yes.
any choices. Again, going back to this idea that when we self regulate, when we can find that sense of mindfulness and presence, we can sort of access that part of our existence. Right?
It just seems the more you talk, the more important a practice seems in healthcare, as critical as anything else that we might be doing.
Yeah, yeah. So here's the I didn't want to say bad news, but here's what I want to say because
Okay.
I don't want to promise the world and then
Yeah,
like,
of
oh, it
course.
doesn't work. It's really important if you're trying to develop these skills to take some time when you're not under stress and
Okay.
practice.
Okay.
Just like it's really important to go to the gym and develop some flexibility and strength so you can carry your groceries.
Okay.
And you can't develop the skills under the stress in which you need them. And that's really important. And that's why they call it practice. And it doesn't
Yeah.
have to be a lot. It just
Okay.
needs to be
Say more about that.
okay.
Let's try to bring that reality. We won't call it bad news. We'll call it, the path to becoming successful in integrating some kind of meditation into your practice as a healthcare professional. Um, and we don't want to mislead people down a path where they can't be successful. I mean, we could take a deep breath in the middle of stress, and maybe that will help bring down our blood pressure and respiratory rate a little bit. So please, yes, do that. But let's get real about what you're saying.
Yeah, what it takes because
Yeah.
um it does take a little effort and a little time.
Okay.
And because so many of us in this culture and in the world in which we live were being trained to stay busy and rushed and racing, it can feel a little uncomfortable to actually take a little time.
Yeah.
And so, and I mean a little time like that first breath conscious breath before you get out of bed. That
Yeah.
can be as small as that, but consistently doing that and noticing how that makes you feel and just acclimating our mind to a sense of what does it feel like to be present,
Right.
open,
Yeah.
engaged, right? And so it can be that. The general recommendations, if people are gonna take up a mindfulness practice, a mindfulness meditation practice, is to get the benefits is 10 minutes a day.
Okay.
To sit down and have a little, a 10-minute practice. And that doesn't have to start out at 10 minutes. It can start
Okay.
out as 3 minutes.
Okay. Yep.
But just even regularly, just taking that time and then finding the practice that really works for you, even if it's, you know, uh, good morning cup of tea practice,
Yep.
looking
Well,
up.
your tea steeps. Yep. Let it steep for a couple of minutes.
Yeah, yeah, and then practice your meditation. We have a
You know, I'm
friend
really,
who does
I'm
that.
really glad that you brought up this point because it's also very true with the Medical Improv Toolkit. It's designed that once you get the hang of it, that you only need to take a few minutes, on a regular basis, not as often as necessarily meditation, but a few minutes with your team um, to integrate it. So trying to make it as realistic as possible for people to be building the skills and having some time together where they're de-stressing. And if you don't take some time and some focus,
It never
you
happens,
know,
right?
right, right. And, I've been a nurse for almost 40 years. I can't believe I'm saying that. Um, but it has been stressful, stressful, stressful. And it's ever since COVID, the burnout I read a statistic not too long ago that it's like 70 to 90% of healthcare professionals are reporting signs and symptoms of burnout. I mean, you know,
And it's across the board. I was just in line to pick up a prescription for my mother-in-law, and the lady behind me got mad, and then,
yeah,
it's just
yeah,
like we're short-staffed and it's
right.
everywhere.
Yeah.